Hello, everyone. Happy Tuesday. Happy So What Day. I am actually coming to you live from the Sulky headquarters here in Kennesaw, Georgia. So I wanted to show you a little bit of the warehouse today. This is where all the magic happens when you place an order. It's a little bit loud in here, so hopefully you can hear me. Give me a thumbs up if everything's coming in loud and clear. I'm just going to turn on the comments here so I can see what everyone is saying. But yes, this is a very special episode of So What. I also have an amazing deal for you guys today. It is the project that we are going to create, and we've kitted it up for you. So that's what we are going to really talk about today. Now I can see everybody coming in and saying hello. Glad you can hear me. It's a little echoey in here, so I'll take you around. You can check out the Sulky HQ here, and we might even get some special guests to say hello as I walk by them. We'll see. But first and foremost, for all of you who joined us last Tuesday for our Stumpwork embroidery webcast, I did want to let you know that we have very few kits for this poinsettia project available still here in the warehouse somewhere. So you could still grab up one of these kits to make a beautiful poinsettia pendant. And the full video for the event is now available on the event page. So if you registered for the event, but you couldn't join us live, you can still log in and watch the whole event in its entirety. Also, last Tuesday, our event actually cut off early. How dare it? So I think it was missing maybe the last 8 or 10 minutes, but we got through the whole project. It was really just kind of me wrapping things up and telling you about the special deals. But the entire event, including those last 8 or 10 minutes, is still included in the recording. So if you missed that, or if you missed any of the event, you can head back to sewingonline.sulky.com, log in, head to that event page, and you can watch the whole thing in its entirety. All right, Colleen, hi, good to see you. She says, the stump work is challenging but fun, slow going. And you know what? I think a lot of handwork things are slow going, but it's fun to kind of change it up every once in a while, right? Maybe we need a project to do while we're traveling. Maybe you're going somewhere for the holidays. Maybe you're joining me on the Germany Christmas tour trip with Craft Tours, and you need something to bring along for that very long plane ride. This would be it. All right, lots of you saying hello. I love it. All right, so remember a couple of months ago, we came out with our Creepin' It Real Table Runner kit. Everybody remember the Creepin' It Real? Let me know in the comments if you grabbed up one of those kits and if your Creepin' It Real Table Runner is already out. Maybe you made a mini quilt with it instead, or something else for your Halloween tablescape. But let me see if I can find it here. Oh, this is a picture of me working on it. The Creepin' It Real Table Runner kit was available one day only as a flash sale here on So What. And it features this beautiful fabric by QT Fabrics. And I just fell in love with these cute little ghosts and goblins and pumpkin people. And it's a panel fabric. So super easy to use it as like a cheater quilt because you've got all of these printed blocks. The borders are already printed on it. And then what we did was we cut out the table runner size of our choice because we had a whole yard to work with, and then put our batting, backing, binding on after quilting it using about 3 different Sulky threads. There was glowy thread, there was poly sparkle thread, and there was a lighter weight 50 weight cotton thread. So this kit, again, was only available during So What back in, was it the end of August, I want to say? And it went like hotcakes. I got tons of emails afterwards. Are you going to do a kit like this for the holidays? Are you going to have something like this for Christmas? Over and over and over again. So guess what, everyone? That is exactly what we did. And today's episode is all about our Christmas collage table runner, again featuring fabulous fabrics from QT Fabrics. And this is a similar border print, meaning there are printed blocks already in a predetermined size. There are printed borders on the 1 yard cut of fabric. It comes with a coordinating backing fabric you can use either for borders or binding, and 3 specialty Sulky threads. And during today's episode, today only, this kit is $34.99 and it retails for over $50. And I happen to be standing right in front of all the kits that are ready and waiting for you to add to cart. Here they are, already prepared, ready for shipping. You get your Sulky kit. Comes with a pack of organ quilting needles in different sizes. And the reason for that is because we've got 3 different Sulky threads here in some different weights. And as we know, because I talk about it on So What all the time, we need different sizes of different sizes of needles based on the thread weight that we are using. So to construct our table runner, whether it's putting the binding on or for piecing, for adding borders, for things like that, which I'm going to go into momentarily, there's a 50 weight cotton thread in sort of a light gray color that really matches the border print that's printed on the panel piece. And then we've got 2 decorative threads for quilting or top stitching or decorative binding, because you can do so many things with this kit. We've got our poly sparkle in this beautiful red color and our poly sparkle in a beautiful gold color. And these colors coordinate perfectly with these beautiful Quilting Treasures fabrics. I'm going to show you a little bit more about what those look like, what the panel looks like, all of that, so that you can see the possibilities you can create with this kit. So fun. Let's see. Deb says, so exciting. We are not in the sewing room. Look at all those boxes. All right, so before we get to today's project, I also want to go over our great gift that we have today during So What for one lucky viewer who is watching, commenting, giving me those emojis, somehow engaging with today's post. That's all you need to do to be automatically eligible to win today's gift from Sulky. You also need to have liked our Facebook page or subscribe to our YouTube channel if you're watching there. And that's how I will contact you if you happen to be the random winner. And today's Sulky gift is our classic Christmas Poly Sparkle sampler. This is a 6-pack of beautiful Poly Sparkle threads in all of those great holiday colors, the rich golds and silvers and reds and greens. So this is the gift for one lucky viewer today. What? I thought that was going to be applause, but I might like that sound effect even better. All right, and if you're interested in that, we also have an ultimate Poly Sparkle Christmas sampler, which has more thread in it. And this is our 50 weight thread holiday sampler. It's called the Holiday Home Thread Sampler. So if you like a lighter weight cotton thread for your Christmas or holiday makes, you might want to look to that holiday sampler as well. But our gift today, our little door prize during So What, is that classic Christmas Poly Sparkle 6-pack sampler. All right, so as I mentioned, before we get into Christmas collage, let me take you around the warehouse a little bit. I'm in like the deep depths of Sulky headquarters here. There are also offices outside of here and all of that, but I thought you would be more interested in seeing the warehouse where all of the boxes get packed for things that you are purchasing at sulky.com. So behind me are a bunch of kits in progress. As I mentioned, this is our flash sale kit. Grab this up today, only $34.99 today only. All right, that's the Christmas collage kit. Look, all of these waiting to show up at your front door so you can get to sewing them. Love that. Over here, we've got some cutting machines and things like that. We have just rows and rows of thread. These are all the individual spools. So when you go onto the site and you pick and choose all of those threads that you want, they're all coded, of course, in here. These are all the 50 weight cottons. Just so many, I mean, sky high shelves of threads. Are we loving this or what? I don't know. I get so jazzed being back here. We've got work tables of other things that are in progress. This is for when we are assembling kits and things like that for you. Cutting stabilizers for specialty projects. Singular spools that are put aside to go into different kits and things like that. Ooh, fabrics. I know what these are for, but you don't yet. So many secrets I'm showing you. All right. These are other walls of cut pieces, kits that we've done, needles, all kinds of things. And it may not seem like it, but it is very organized back here. They know exactly what row to go in to grab things to put them into your boxes and package them nicely for you. Jana says, someone has got to climb all of those shelves for me when I shop. That's right. That's right. That's why they wear all the protective things back here. I don't even know if they want me back here, but here I am anyway. And it goes on and on. I'm just going to give you a small sneak peek, and there's music going on, and everyone is very focused on what they're doing. I won't bother them over there. They're probably like, what is this lady doing? Absolutely love it. Ooh, I was going to head out and go through the tutorial with you in our sewing studio so that you could see that as well. A number of you have seen that anyways, because sometimes I come out here and I film some of our tutorials for our online education at sewingonline.sulky.com. I'm just making sure that I clean up after myself, because that would be, I gotta put that kit back. They would say, what happened to the kit inventory? Ellen stole a kit. Just kidding. Okay, so I'm going to head out of the warehouse now. We'll go into the main offices. And if you missed the beginning of today's episode and you have no idea where I am and what's going on, we are at Sulky headquarters in Kennesaw, Georgia. I come here periodically. It's a fabulous place to be. All right. So I'm going to head out of the warehouse, and it's much, much quieter out here, as you can tell. I'm going to head into our sewing studio, and this is quite a large room. This is where we have done a lot of filming, literally right here at this sewing machine. I'm going to see if I can prop myself up on something. Or my arm's going to get rather tired. Here. All right, bear with me, everyone. I'm on the road, right? Okay. There we go. So, it's a little bit quieter in here, as you can tell. Lots going on here at Sulky. Let's see. Linda says, oh, how far is your Sew What studio from the warehouse? So I work in my home office in Colorado. So the Sew What studio is much farther away, normally. This little sewing studio is right outside of the warehouse. There's several offices out here in this little hallway. And then the building continues on down the hall as well. All right, let's see. And yes, Stephanie, this is in Georgia. The Sulky headquarters is in Kennesaw, Georgia, outside of Atlanta. And so I just thought that you might want to see a little bit behind the scenes. Let's see if there's more questions that have come in. Jana says, yay for the tour. I was hoping that someone would walk by, but I think they were all trying to duck out of the way. Okay. Jana says, thank you for showing me around. Okay, perfect. All right, so let's get to the Christmas Collage Table Runner tutorial. As I mentioned, this is loosely based on our Creepin' It Real Halloween Table Runner kit because so many of you wrote to me and said that you absolutely loved working with these panel fabrics. Now people are saying hello. Working with these panel fabrics and loving the sort of cheater quilt idea, right? So the great thing about these fabrics is you can use them as is. You don't have to piece anything together, and you can get right to the quilting and finishing of this in a snap. If you want to, however, you can fussy cut these little pre-printed blocks and add borders of your choice, add maybe little corner snipes or half square triangles between them. You can make it as intermediate or more involved, I should say, as you want, or as simple as you want. The other great thing about this project, or this type of project, is you can make it whatever size you want. So for Creepin' It Real, I was telling, a lot of you were saying, well, what size is the finished table runner? It's kind of whatever size you want it to be. You could do one row of those blocks and make a longer, skinnier table runner for maybe a longer rectangular table. You can make 4 blocks into a centerpiece, sort of just table topper. You could make a lap quilt or a sort of almost like baby quilt size, craft batting size, or a wall hanging. So many things can be made out of this kit. I think that's why this was so popular the first time around. It can be quilted in so many different ways as well. So for Creepin' It Real, what I did was super cheater quilt style. I just cut out 2 rows of the blocks, preserving as much of that printed border as possible, as you can see here. And then I layered my backing fabric with my KK2000 in between, quilted it in a couple of different ways. I did some hand quilting with the glowy thread. I did machine quilting with the poly sparkle thread. And then I used that 50 weight cotton thread to add my batting, and she was done. So really, really simple approach to this one. And I had a lot of fabric left over for things like coordinating coasters. I could have made a tote bag with it. In fact, one of you, and shout out if you are in the comments right now, or if you're watching right now, one of you on our Stitch and Post page actually posted a photo of 3 things that you made with this kit. You made the table runner, you made a coaster set, and you made a tote bag, all with the 1 yard panel fabric, the 1 yard backing fabric, and then the yardage that was intended for the binding. So there's plenty of fabric in this kit, and I modeled the Christmas Collage Table Runner kit exactly after Creepin' It Real. So I just showed you the kit in the bag, but you get this beautiful vintage inspired Christmas nostalgia, if you will, fabric panel. You get a coordinating Christmas collage motif print that you can use for the backing. If you want to cut that and use it for some border pieces, you can do that as well. And then it comes with a little bit of yardage that coordinates that you can either use for border pieces or for binding. Also that needle pack and the 3 threads that I talked about before. All right, so for this, you will also get a instructional PDF to guide you through the process of making your table runner or table topper or mini quilt. You get the idea. It's going to be the same PDF that you got for Creepin' It Real because it's the exact same yardage requirements or the exact same yardage in the kit that you got for Creepin' It Real. And the cool thing about this PDF is inside of it are a lot of different variations and ideas and sizes that you can use to create a table piece, a table runner, what have you, for your particular table. So it is going to be the same PDF but we are applying it to these different fabrics. Everybody with me on that? All right. So I decided to approach this one a little bit differently than I did with the Creepin' It Real. Instead of doing a cheater quilt style where I would just use the panel exactly how it's printed, I decided to fussy cut my motifs. So I love these little vintage kind of Santa images, and there's deer and there's snowmen, and you know, I've been talking about this a little bit, but especially with our Vintage Vibes mystery box, which by the way, I think there's like 3 or 4 of those left. If you didn't get one, grab one before they're gone. But the whole idea behind the Vintage Vibes mystery box was throughout fall and into winter, probably even into early 2026, it's a big trend in the craft industry for all of these great vintage motifs, bringing back that nostalgia, taking us back to a place of, you know, feeling very much like we're going home, right? Like we're going back in time. And I just love these old-timey Santa motifs. It just really, this fabric collection really spoke to me, just like the Creepin' It Real did. And I think it's just so beautiful. And it goes with so many different decor styles as well. You'll see that the one that I created has very sort of neutral tones to it. It's very cream and tan and ecru, and I use the gold thread for the quilting. So you can also go more of like the red and green, a little bit more traditional holiday look with some more elements from the panel. So a lot of flexibility in this fabric line as well. But at any rate, so I decided to fussy cut my printed blocks, and you'll see that I cut about 1/4 of an inch beyond the block motif. That way, when I piece it together with borders, or I can just piece the blocks together with no borders if I want that look, I have that little bit, that 1/4 inch for my seam allowance. So the borders look like they go seamlessly into those printed blocks. All right, so I prepared all of my blocks by trimming along the borders, and I cut more than I ended up using, just so that I could kind of play around with them and move them and figure out the orientation of the motifs and how I wanted to display it on my table. So I cut out 6. I think with the 1 yard panel, you get 12 blocks to play with, I want to say. I hope I'm not wrong on that. I could go back to the warehouse and open a kit, but I think you get about 12 for the yard. You also, if you could see in this picture, you also get some border strips. So the candy stripe red and white stripes that you see here are included on that 1 yard piece. So you could actually use that either for your binding, depending on the size of your table runner. You could use it for elements of border piecing. I fussy cut that out as well. I cut 1/4 of an inch beyond the printed piece, just again to kind of play around with the design that I wanted. I didn't end up using those pieces for my table runner, but I'm going to use it for something else, for a coordinating piece for something else that I will create for the holidays. Those would make great straps for a tote bag as well. All right, so once you've kind of fussy cut your pieces, if you want to do it the way that I did it, you can, of course, just cut that yardage and do a cheater quilt style. But once I cut all of those out, I pieced them together. I'm getting a little ahead of myself with that quilting photo. So what I ended up doing was I chose 4 of the blocks, and then I put a border strip between them, and then border strips on the upper and lower edge of the table runner. And I actually used the smaller piece of yardage, which is intended for the binding. I used that for my border pieces. I will show you what it looks like momentarily. I cut my borders 2.5 inches wide, and I sewed them all together. And what I ended up doing was, you see that the motifs are very directional, right? There's, you know, with Creepin' It Real, all the monsters are facing the same direction. With this, all the motifs are facing the same direction. So if you do decide to do the cheater quilt style, all of your motifs will be in the same direction. Completely fine. I don't think anybody minds if they're sitting at your table at your holiday dinner party and the Santas aren't facing them. No biggie. What I decided to do was face my prints outward from center. So that way, whether you're sitting across from the table runner on either side, your motifs are directionally going this way. And if you're sitting on either end, the motifs are facing you. Does this make sense? So I oriented my blocks so that they were facing each other going out from the length of the table runner. But again, you have the flexibility to face them however you want. Maybe you want one oriented right side up this way and then turn the other one around so that no matter where you're sitting at the table, something is facing you. So you have the flexibility to decide that. Once you have your table runner top or mini quilt top, or you could even isolate one of these motifs and put borders around it and make a pillow out of it and have a set of pillows. Oh, maybe that's what I'm going to do with my leftover. Love that idea. So much you could do with just the yardage in the kit. Okay. So once you have your topper for whatever it is that you're making, all pieced and completed, then you want to do your quilt sandwich with your batting and your backing. The kit does not come with batting. And that's really because depending on the size that you want to create, that's the size of batting that you're going to need, obviously. You want it a little bit larger on all sides to account for, if you're doing heavy quilting and things might, spread outward a little bit to make room for all that thread that you're adding in to the design. But hopefully you have a cutoff piece, maybe from a larger quilt project, or you can grab up a craft batting, and you should have plenty for several projects once you do that. All right, so now comes the quilting. And you can get so creative with the kind of quilting that you want to do on this. For Creepin' It Real, as I mentioned, I did 3 different quilting sort of techniques, right? I did the hand quilting with the glowy. I did outline quilting with the poly sparkle. I did a little bit of echo quilting with the 50 weight cotton thread. I used all the thread and I had a ball. For for Christmas collage, I decided to just do straight line quilting across the entire length of the table runner. And I was a little bit on the fence about doing it that way because I didn't want sort of these stripes of sparkly thread to interfere with the piecing that I did on the table runner. But I ended up loving it so much. I think it's actually more subtle than I thought it was going to be, even though I was using this sparkly thread. So I chose to use the gold poly sparkle thread. And if you've never heard of poly sparkle before, poly sparkle is a 30 weight thread. So you need a larger needle for it than you will use for the construction or the piecing of your project. For the piecing, you want to use that lightweight 50 weight cotton thread and a 70-10 or a 75-11 needle. For the 30 weight thread for poly sparkle, you'll want to use a 90-14 needle. So that's why in the kit for today, you get an assortment pack of needles so that you can switch between those 2 sizes depending on the thread weight that you are choosing to use for which part of the project. So brava for the needle sizes. So what I did was I started off by just stitching a straight line down the center of the table runner. And then I put my quilting guide on and I stitched another line every inch across the table runner width. And instead of drawing that center line all the way down the center of the table runner, which sometimes it makes me nervous, even though I'm using a heat soluble marker, just makes me nervous to draw a big red line down the middle of this thing that I just pieced. Although, you know, there's really nothing wrong with it. But what I did was I just made a mark every, I don't know, 8 inches or so down the table runner. And I think my table runner came out to be about like 16 by 54 or something like that. And that's just because I have a long dining room table and I didn't want it to hang off the sides, but I wanted it to span like the entire table. So I highly suggest go to your table, measure things up, figure out how you want to display it, and that's going to dictate the size of tabletopper that you're making. How many, motifs you want to showcase. That could also dictate the size. If you really love all the motif blocks that have the old-timey Santas on them, use all those blocks and then save the Winter Wonderland, the Happy Holidays for a pillow set, something like this. Anyway, I just marked about every 8 inches or so, and then I used my laser light that I have on my sewing machine. If you are lucky enough to have one of those, don't forget about it. And I just made sure to stitch straight down, lining up my laser light with those markings. You, of course, can use chalk pen, air-soluble marker, what have you, and just draw that first center line. But when I'm doing straight line quilting, sometimes, no lie, I will mark every single line because I want to make sure it's perfect. Other times, I'll just put that quilt guide on there and I will follow based on that one center line that I start off with. Also, when I'm quilting with a little bit heavier weight thread like this 30 weight Poly Sparkle, oh, and I got off track a little bit. Poly Sparkle is mostly polyester, but it has a strand of Sulky hollow shimmer running through it. So you don't have to do a whole lot of machine adjustments to sew with Poly Sparkle thread. For example, if you were sewing just with hollow shimmer, you would need a thread guide. You would have to slow your machine down to the lowest setting. You would need to make sure that it's not twisting off of the spool while you are sewing with it. I was going to show you that here and I don't even, okay. I was like, there better be thread in this machine. We're at Sulky headquarters. There better be thread right next to me. Thankfully, there is. We're just going to unthread this. When you're working with a flat metallic thread or even our original metallic thread, what is most problematic about using those threads are the fact that they twist off of the spool. So when you're doing high speed sewing, even if you're just sewing at the lowest speed, all those twists will start adding up and compounding on each other, and then your thread will snap. Because as it's coming off the spool, if you've got a if you have a vertical spool pin, this is what your spool is going to look like. And watch what happens when the thread comes off of it. Twist, 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 twist. So it has nothing to do with the quality of thread that you're using when your thread snaps when you're using metallic thread. It's because all those twists are building up. Even if it's really hard to see with the naked eye when that's happening when you're sewing at such a high speed. But all those twists are just building up and then they can't take it anymore and they snap. They can't even go through the needle eye anymore because of all those twists. Even if you have a horizontal spool pin and your spool pin is facing this way going toward the needle, twist, twist, twist off of the spool. So that's still building up all that tension that you don't need when you're sewing. So it is important to have a spool pin adapter that you can put either on your spool pin or your bobbin winder so that your thread is horizontal facing the threading path of your sewing machine rather than facing this way. Because then what's happening as the thread winds off of the spool, not a single twist, right? So these are some of the precautions that you need to take when you're sewing with hollow shimmer, sliver, or even our original metallics. You also want to use a metallic needle. We call them metal needles because that's how that's what's written on the package, metal needles. A metal needle is able to absorb or deflect, something like that, get rid of the heat that is produced by using these metallic threads at high speeds. It can build up heat and that'll snap the thread as well. That's why you use a metallic or a metal needle. All right. With Poly Sparkle, you don't need to do those things. I use a regular, whatever needle I'm using, like in this instance, a quilting needle in the 9014 size. I don't even really slow my machine down, but you can. The one thing that I do is I lengthen my stitch length a little bit. So where I would normally have a 2.5 millimeter stitch length for my piecing and for my binding, when I do the quilting, I like to go up to a 3.5. It makes your stitch a little bit longer. It makes it give it a little bit more quilty feeling, if that makes sense. And when you're working with that heavier weight thread, when you have a shorter stitch length, the thread almost has like a bump to it because it's heavier weight. And so you're trying to stitch it closer together than it wants to be because it is heavier. So elongating that stitch length a little bit is going to give you a smoother appearance across your quilt as well. So quilt it in the manner of your choice. You can use that beautiful red, sort of burgundy, rich Poly Sparkle thread for your quilting, or you can use the gold like I did. You can use both. Maybe you want to do a little free motion quilting over the top of that little poinsettia or the little red details in the wreaths or the snowman. You could do a little bit free motion sparkle in there and have that red thread really, pop off of the surface. That would be beautiful. You can also quilt this using the 50 weight cotton thread that you use to construct the table runner. And then your quilting is going to blend in more to the design rather than be one of the focal points of your finished project. So entirely up to you, but you have 3 threads at your disposal that come with purchase of the kit, and you'll get to try out that Poly Sparkle thread if you haven't tried it out already. So after you do all of your quilting, it is time to add the binding. Oh, here you can see my rows of equidistant quilting across the width of the table runner and using that quilt guide. All right, so binding. Okay, I used the same thread that I used for my borders. I used for my binding as well. I cut my binding on the bias just because I had more binding to work with that way. Because I cut my borders on the straight grain. So I had, a piece left over that I cut on the bias, but you don't have to cut your binding on the bias because we're not going around curves here. So you certainly could try to use that cute little candy stripe print that is on the border piece. You could try using that for your binding. It's going to depend on the size of your table runner though. So make sure to measure the perimeter of the table runner that you create and make sure that you have enough fabric. If you do want to use that cute little candy stripe, that would be so cute for the binding, or cute as some little border stripes as well. So for my binding, I cut my strips at 2.5 inches. I pieced them together. I mitered the corners as I reached them. Let's see. Well, after cutting them at 2.5 inches wide, fold your entire strip right side or wrong sides together and press them nice and flat. I decided to machine sew my binding, but you might prefer to stitch your binding by hand. Whatever binding method you prefer and that you are best at, do what works for you for sure. So what I did was I sewed my binding onto the backing first. I love that backing print. Isn't it so gorgeous? And I love sort of these muted tones. It adds to that vintage quality. I'm just so in love with this fabric. Really, really love it. Okay. Anyways, I sewed my binding to the backing first. Then I flipped it around to the right side and I used like 100 Wonder Clips to clip it around, make sure that my corners were all mitered and nice and accurate. And then I set my machine for a blanket stitch, and I used that 50 weight cotton thread to blanket stitch my binding to the front side of my table runner. And that was my finishing detail, and it was done and ready to put on the table. So here is my finished table runner, which looks totally different from the Creepin' It Real table runner, not only because of the fabric choice, but just how I constructed it. And all I did was fussy cut those border prints rather than cutting them out of the yardage, basically because I wanted them to face different directions. So you can see at the opposite end of this picture where it says Happy Holidays, it's a little bit hard to see, that is upside down to me where I'm sitting, right? Because they're facing out. So I love that I went with this sort of cream, grayish, ecru tone. I think it looks really elegant, and it, then will coordinate with a lot of the other holiday things that I have for my table. Not to mention, it's basically a reversible. This is the other side of my table runner. It's a little bit hard to see that sparkle just from the lighting of these photos. So it is hard to see. The poly sparkle is a subtle sparkle. We're not going all out with a hollow shimmer metallic here, but it just gives it a little bit of a glinty shimmer, if you will, which I love for holiday decorating. So if you want, let's say you're having a dinner party, one night, and then you're having a holiday potluck the next, you can switch up your decor just by flipping your table runner over and showcasing that beautiful backing fabric instead of your pieced top. So the backing print, those motifs are all going in different directions. So it's a non-directional print. You could just showcase that print one day and then flip it over and showcase your pieced blocks and borders and however you want to display it. So it's reversible, beautiful fabrics, customizable to your own table and your own decor needs, and you will have plenty of fabric left over to make some other projects as well. Really, really pretty fabrics. Love, love, love these fabrics from Quilting Treasures. So I'm going to go through the comments here and make sure that we don't have any questions that have come in about this project or about the kit. And I'm just going to show it to you again here for those of you who missed it. This is everything that is included in today's kit. Again, today only, this kit is $34.99. I don't even think you can grab up just these fabrics for $34.99. So it's kind of like getting the needles and thread for free. I mean, it's a crazy deal, and you get these beautiful QT fabrics that, you're not going to find everywhere. And they're just really, really nice quality. They feel great. The hand is so nice. You're going to love working with them. I love a designer fabric, let me just tell you. All right, so let me go through and make sure that we've addressed any questions. Helen says, I love both panels and the generous yardage in the kits. Yeah, you could really mix and match these. Maybe you have just a solid white fabric on hand, or I've even heard of people using like good quality bed sheets. You could turn this into a larger quilt project and use a nice sheet or something for the backing fabric and really, go big with a larger scale holiday project. So great flexibility in this kit. Oh, Noreen says, could you show a close-up of the blanket stitching? Let's see if we can pick that up in one of these images. Since I am at the Sulky headquarters today, I don't have the table runner with me, but it is hanging behind my camera at home. Not that that helps us. Are you able to see the blanket stitching? So I used the 50 weight cotton thread for the blanket stitching. So it almost blends in to the binding. Quite honestly, you could see a little bit of it along the binding in this image, I think. So my blanket stitch is rather narrow and a little bit closer together, but I love that. The reason why I choose a blanket stitch when I'm machine sewing my binding, sometimes I'll do a serpentine stitch if it's a little bit more modern style quilt or table runner. But the reason why I like using a blanket stitch is you're guaranteed that you're going to get that binding fold in the little bite of the blanket stitch. Whereas sometimes if you're just straight stitching your binding on, first off, I can veer off course and it just bothers me incessantly every time I look at the finished project. I'm like, there's where I veered off course, where I wasn't exactly straight, or there's where I didn't quite catch the binding and the stitching, and inevitably I'll have to go in and like hand sew that little part or something like that. With a blanket stitch, you're pretty much guaranteed that even if you veer off course just a little bit from straight stitching along the binding, that little bite of thread that's going in towards the outer edge of the binding is going to catch every time. So that's also why I like to use a blanket stitch. Not just decorative, but it has practical purposes as well. All right, Cindy says, this fabric reminds me of my childhood. I love that. I think this holiday season, you know, things are hitting the shelf already, even though we haven't even had Halloween. But those little bubble lights and the ribbon candies and these, you know, vintage looking Santas, I just, you're going to be seeing a lot of those as you're, you know, seeing the shelves fill up with holiday things. And this just really goes along with all of that so well. All right, let's see. Good thread tips. Thank you, Carol. Linda just ordered the kit. Very nice. Love it. And I want to see what you do with the kit. I really loved seeing that picture that someone posted on our Stitch and Post Facebook group. They posted their Creepin' It Real kit, as I mentioned, and showed all the things that they made with it. And I just love seeing all of that. I love seeing your takes on our projects that we present here or in our webcasts or sessions, because that really is what sewing is all about, is putting our own personal stamp on things and making it our own. That's one of the reasons why a lot of us sew. So I really love seeing the end results. I love seeing your creativity and the things that you add to it. And it fuels my inspiration as well as I develop things in the future. So I really, really would love to see what you all do with this kit as well. All right. I love vintage because I am vintage. That's the comment of the day, everyone. Love it. Vicky says, how many different panels are in the Christmas kit? Can we see them? Okay, does everyone want to see all of the panels? If you do, give me a thumbs up and I will go back in the warehouse. We will open someone's kit. Should I open someone's kit? And then I'm going to try to fold it back nicely. Maybe write a handwritten note in there that says, I opened this on So What and tried to fold it as nicely as they do. Okay, let's see. Diana says, I came in late. Does 50 weight cotton thread come in the kit? Oh, that would be awesome. Thank you. Oh, I'm getting a kit hand delivered. Love it. Yes, Diana, you do get a 50 weight thread with the kit. That's for your piecing and for adding your binding. You can also use it for quilting if you do want a little bit more subtle quilting. If you want your quilting thread to blend into your background, you'll use that 50 weight thread. It is a neutral color. It's like a really light gray that really goes with the fabric print. So it's going to just blend in, okay? Then you get 2 spools of poly sparkle thread for your quilting, your top stitching. You could even use that for decorative binding if you wanted to. You'll get this really rich kind of burgundy red poly sparkle, and then a gold poly sparkle as well. So you could pick and choose, or you can use all three, however you want to make it your own. Thank you so much.
You are welcome.
All right. That was Jill, everyone. We're going to give her a round of applause. Okay. She handles a lot of your questions as they come in, and she is fantastic. Love her.
Thank you.
All right, so let's open the panel together, and then you can see that you do get this really great stripe on the panel as well. So we can count together, and I won't have to guess about how many motifs that you get. And again, this is 1 yard of fabric, so you're likely not going to need a whole yard for your table runner, unless, of course, you have a gigantic table, or if you want to, showcase multiple blocks on it. So you could utilize this whole panel and create a cheater quilt, lap quilt, or a pretty throw for your couch or something like that, and literally just quilt it as it is, adding all of those decorative threads. So you get a border on this side, all right, and you get a border on this side to work with. So again, depending on the size of your runner, you could use that for your binding or use it for some border pieces as well. And let's count. 1, 2, 3. Oh, I'm so glad we got one. You get 9 of the printed blocks. I think I originally said 12. So you get 9 of the printed blocks. They're a little bit larger than the blocks that you got with Creepin' It Real. So the size of the block, I just happen to have a measuring device here. The size of the block without borders is 10 inches. 10 inches square, okay? So each one of these, 10 inches square. And then, you have your printed border strips too. So you could cut out each one of your blocks a 1/4 inch beyond, and then you'll still have these little strips that you could use for something as well. Maybe you want to use them for a really narrow binding on a tote upper edge, or for a border that's for a pillow top, something like this. You could do a 10 or 12 inch pillow using these. So we've got ho, ho, ho. Oh my gosh, love the Santa motif. Okay, it also reminds me of my childhood. All right, we've got Winter Wonderland. We've got the snowman. It says, good tidings of comfort and joy. I mean, I'm just in love with this fabric. Okay, we've got Merry Christmas, and it has this beautiful deer and these poinsettias and a little snowman. Season's Greetings. This one would be really great for a wall hanging, pillow, or even just on your table runner, of course. Happy Holidays. Santa is riding a deer. Little poinsettia. I just think these would look really, really stunning if you use that poly sparkle thread in the red color and just do some little elements. Maybe just stitch the Santa hat in a little of that poly sparkle red color. And so when you're looking at it, you have these little glints of sparkle just in little areas. You don't have to do it everywhere. Just little subtle things like that. So cute. All right, where am I? Oh, love this one. It's the truck with the Christmas tree. So cute. And then we have another Santa with a deer, reindeer. And then the last one is Season's Greetings with the beautiful poinsettia, the stocking, all of it. All right. Absolutely beautiful 1 yard panel. And then you get 1 yard of the backing fabric. And then you also get a coordinating print that you can use either for the binding, for border elements, all kinds of things. So you can make just a ton of stuff with just this one kit. Again, this is QT Fabrics, qtfabrics.com. Love their fabrics. The feel of them is luxurious. You know you're getting a quality fabric when it doesn't have that like stiff, crispy quality to it. It feels nice and lovely to work with and sew with, and definitely something that you want to display for the holidays. Whether you're making something for your table, something for your couch, something for your wall, this is going to fit the bill. So whoever gets this particular kit is definitely going to know that it is the one that I opened on Sew What. It's kind of like when you go to the store, you grab up a shirt and you're like, no, that's not for me. And you try your best to fold it like they do. You never get it quite right. So I apologize. I'm sure they will take care of it for me though, because they are always putting their best foot forward and they wouldn't dare sell this kit in the way that I'm putting it back. But we did it for the good of the group. For the good of the group, everyone. All right, let's see. Diana says, where are you at the Sulky headquarters? So this is kind of like a staging area here for some of the events that we record, some of the tutorials that we do. That's why there's this cute little corner here that's got some little, things propped out. But it's also got a lot of storage for things like shows and when we go on the road and stuff like that. So this is kind of, I guess, what I'll call the staging area when we do photography and things like that. But if you missed the beginning of today's show, I actually started out in the Sulky warehouse where all the magic happens, where kits are made and cut and where threads are pulled for people's orders. And it's a massive, massive building with lots and lots of really just wonderful, dedicated people working in it. So that's where I started out on today's show. So if you missed that, you can rewind after we finish the live and you'll be able to see that and get a little inside look at the Sulky HQ. In what city? We are in Kennesaw, Georgia at the moment, just outside of Atlanta. It's a quaint little area here. Let's see. Oh, Deb has a great idea. She says they would be lovely to use as panels on homemade gift bags. Love that idea. Let's see. Love the door. Oh, Diana's asking, can you just get the fabric? Unfortunately, no, we are only selling this fabric as part of this kit. Here at Sulky, we specialize in thread and stabilizers. So when we are showcasing a fabric, it is in a kit. So let's see. Linda just got the kit and the thread. Can't wait to get it. Love that. All right. Yes, Jill is wonderful. Okay, so I hope I got to all of the questions. If I did not, be sure to keep putting them in the chat here and we'll answer them after the live here today. Esther says, does Sulky offer tours to the public? They do not. So you are getting this inside look into Sulky where no man has gone before. No, there's plenty of people have come here before, but no, they don't do public tours. And actually, if you are joining us on our craft tours trip this winter through Germany and Austria, we will be going to the motherland of Sulky, where Sulky thread is made and manufactured. So a very select few of you who have signed up for that tour will get that insider look. And that is also not open to the public. So it's a very, very special tour and trip. And they're just very, very good to us out there as well. All right, let's see. Speaking of craft tours, the one last thing I want to leave you with is our Greece tour happening in 2026 in the end of May, early June. This is like the perfect time to go to Greece before the really heavy touristy season starts. And it's an absolutely beautiful tour. It includes all the quintessential things you think about Greece: Santorini, Athens, Mykonos. All of those places we will be going to. There will be a hands-on sewing workshop that's full of Mediterranean inspiration and all kinds of fun things to do with needle and thread. And I really hope you join us in Greece next year, and we are expanding our tours with craft tours. So head on over to look at the Greece tour, and you might just find a couple more tours popping up in the next week or so. And I'm really excited to let you know about those locations as well. So grab up your Christmas Collage Table Runner kit at the low, low price of only $34.99 today only. After today, it's going to go up to about $50. So you definitely want to grab up that while you can and before they sell out. And you can sew up some Christmas nostalgia for your holiday table or your holiday home. And thank you all for joining me today. Have a great rest of your Tuesday, and I will see you next week on another So What, back in our regular So What studio, we'll call it. All right. Have